Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2019 and 2019 in Streamtime. I'm Paulina and this is Patty. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you all had a lovely break. How was your break, Patty?
It was really nice. I got out of Sydney.
Nice.
And spent a little bit of time at the beach. Maybe a little bit too much time, but a little bit
Never
of sun.
too much.
How about yourself?
Yeah, same. Actually, I live in Manly, so my day today was beach, a couple of drinks in the afternoon,
nice.
barbecue, and a couple of parties along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Why not? So we're all back, and we've got some exciting stuff coming to Streamtime. But today we're going to focus on how to capture data in Streamtime and how to optimize your Streamtime to provide the best data for your business. So we want you to be proactive, not reactive, and really understand where your business at, and we will show you how to set your account properly in a way that it will lead you to a success. And we will cover a bit on setup in your profile and settings, which is quite important, and we'll look into reporting screen as well. We'll go into detail in how to create different reports and understand that essential data.
Yeah, I think when we talked about which session we'd do as the first one for this year, we thought this one would be a good session because it's good for new users and existing users.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at reporting in depth, kind of explaining how that all is connected together, but also if you are looking at a new tool, maybe you're looking to join us on Streamtime, we can kind of show you the best things to do to get set up properly from the get-go so that you're going to be seeing the best data at any point in time. Maybe just hold that microphone close to your face so that...
Thanks.
There we go. Cool. Awesome.
Patty's a business owner, or you work in finance department. It doesn't really matter. You still you have an idea after this session how to use your data and where to enter your data correctly to be able to get the best result.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's get the ball rolling, shall we, Paul?
Should we? A bit of housekeeping. I love that. So, guys, welcome everyone. I can see that you're all saying hello. If you have any questions, just use the ask a question field in here so we can prioritize them for you. That's it.
Yeah, we'll try and save some time at the end to answer any questions you have. So anything you want to know in particular, anything that you might want to be able to see, let us know and we can show you.
Perfect.
Awesome. So let's just jump on in. I'm just going to open this one up.
Perfect. Yeah, so in here I would like to start, spend some time in profile and settings. So for you to understand how important is that essential setup is for your business. So in here you can actually go into your team, and we can't stress enough how important is it to add your team's cost rates, as well as the billable hourly rate. So actually understand how much this team member is costing you in your business, and then be able to create a report on it.
Right. And maybe this is a good thing to do when you do add all those team members in, because there's other things you can kind of set up for your team as well. If maybe they only work a few days a week, we can set that up here by just changing the number of hours available on their to-do list on these days, and also just providing access to maybe some different areas if they're going to be doing different things. But the really important one there is cost rate. So you won't assume anything at the start, so you'll need to update yourself. And we'll see why cost rate is really important, but it's to do with profitability.
Yeah, exactly. So stay tuned for that. Hold this thought. Also, creating some items and expenses in advance is huge. It's going to save you lots of time. It's going to make your life so much easier in the future. And those are your services that you provide, and can be a cost matrix if you actually use Streamtime Classic previously, but that's where you would set things up in advance and add your rates in here too.
Yeah, it's like a rate card, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And maybe let's just explain the difference between what an item is and an expense is. So when we talk about items, they're things that our team members are going to be tracking time against.
Yeah.
We'll use these to plan a job out.
Exactly.
Maybe they're stages of a job. We can kind of see we've got artwork, concept development, design, discover. Maybe that's a research stage. And then we've got expenses, and these are more hard costs that come through the business, things that we might sell onto the client. Maybe they'll involve a third-party supplier.
Exactly, and it's very important to add those expenses in advance and actually add those cost rates. That it means basically this is how much this expense costs you as a business, and how much should you be selling that to your client with your markup.
And I can actually see below here, because we have connected with Xero, we do integrate with Xero. I have the option to assign a Xero revenue account and an expense account. And what that means is that when I create an invoice, that revenue account is going to let me send any money made from this expense through to that channel. Already set up in Xero, and this list will just be populated from your list in Xero if you've already got that integration set up. And the expense account here is when you're adding that expense, or when you're considering it as a purchase order, copying it across to Xero, then that's kind of what we'll be looking at. That's the cost coming through the business.
Exactly, and it reduces the double handling, for your finance team or yourself to chase, making sure it's all organized in Xero for you. So we already set it up in here.
Yeah. Was there anything else that we needed to look at in setup? Was that it?
Well, I think that's it. Company settings is all about your job numbers and your integrations. Also a good one. So we can see that we've set up a Xero account and the revenue codes, which is good. So I think we are good to go.
Let's get cracking. Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to spend most of the time today in this jobs area. It's kind of where all the reporting happens in Streamtime. We've got some different lists, and Polly, do you want to maybe talk about exactly how we report in Streamtime, how we can use things like these favorites, filters, and columns to show different data? Sure.
So if you guys are new to Streamtime, you could see that we've created some of the favorite reports for you in advance. Those are good ones to start with. Alternatively, you can actually modify them or create your own custom reports in Streamtime. So for me personally, if I look at my job screen, it's a bit overwhelming. So I would like to see some specific information. So in order to create your favorite reports, your custom reports, I would go into those columns and have a look what's there first. The columns.
The columns.
Yep. Yeah. And those are the information that you can actually add into your job screen and to your report. And that's where you can go from. And if you like to filter that information, you use the filtering button in here and filter it by whatever you like, whatever the column you've added in here. Then it means you actually have created your custom report, your favorite, and you can save that as well. So you can keep using that in the future.
We can save those as favorites, that's right?
As favorites, exactly. And those favorite reports are basically those are reports for you to look at and that you look all the time. So you can see the profitability of your job. Are your jobs profitable in a way? And that's why those cost rates come in play.
Maybe not that one. Maybe this one. Okay, cool. So this might be a good example of a quick report to show you guys that we've already set up. It's called Profit Margin in Progress, and already I'm getting a very quick glance at a few jobs. And one thing that I notice on them is that the label in progress is applied to these jobs. So I think there's probably a job label filter happening there. And I can just see I've kind of turned off all the columns except for that profit margin and the due date of some of these jobs, just because that's all I really need to see when I want to click this one. Really easy to kind of set up those reports to clean up that data. And all that we're looking at here is jobs with that job label in progress that are also active. We can see that the job status is playing in there as well. So it's excluding any archived jobs, which is good. In progress jobs are probably not going to be archived. And then I can see that there are just a few columns turned on here: company, job name, profit margin. And when you hover over those, you can actually see that we do explain how that's calculated. So when we're looking at profit margin, it's the amount of profit on a job expressed as a percentage, and it's calculated with the total profit divided by the invoiced amount of the job. Now, if you're wondering how we calculate the total profit, we'll tell you that too. It's using the total excluding the tax of all the invoices for the job, subtracting that from or subtracting the time that's spent multiplied by the user's cost rates plus all the cost rates for the expenses used. So it's pretty convoluted. Those formulas are kind of provided there, so you can piece together exactly how they're working. And again, that's a good example as to why it's important to set up those cost rates.
Exactly. So this you can add so many columns on this job report. So it gives you a lot of information all at once. Then what I would do, I would filter this information. If it can be job specific, and as Patty mentioned, can be using labels as well, and different lists as well for you to have more in-depth understanding of how your business operates. So there's time, the expenses, quotes, and invoicing. So if you like to see, for example, what are the for payroll purposes, how much time has been spent by your team last week? You can do that from your time report in here. And should we group that by a team member, or even?
I think team member is a good one to group that one by. Now, I don't think anyone tracked any time last week, but we'll see if they did. Maybe we just want to check that no one was working.
Patty, guilty.
My mistake. And it looks like we're not making much money on that time too, probably because maybe I was doing some internal work. But so we can easily see by grouping this one by team member and filtering by the date logged, which was last week. We're getting a really clear idea as to what happened there, who tracked time. We'll give you a quick summary at the top, but we can always unfold this by clicking on that team member and looking at the job
and the item. So
what did Patty actually do? How much was that costing us, and how much do we sell it for? Now, there was a good question just there from Scott, which I think we'll just answer on the fly. It was about favorites before we do kind of move away from it. The question was, are favorites universal or user-based?
They are user-based, Scott. So if you are looking to create the same reports for the whole team, I would just communicate to the team so they can all have that report saved as a favorite. Yeah,
it might be handy to take a screenshot of the filters that you've got applied, and then the other person will know exactly what you're looking at.
Exactly.
Cool. Easy.
We've got another question here about time by Paula. Is there a way to see billable versus non-billable time spent? Great question.
Great question. And the way we would kind of show billable versus non-billable time spent is probably by using a label to indicate the jobs that are non-billable, any work that might be internal that we're not going to sell. And we can see that we have got an internal label set up here. So in order to see the time there, what I might do in this case is, let's say I want to look at all time on internal jobs. And maybe I want to look at this by team member. So all I'm going to do in the time list is add a job label for internal, and this is showing me all of the time tracked against those internal jobs. Obviously, I can see the cost, and I can see the potential sell price for that one too, if you have got that set up.
Yeah, so it's good to understand how much does it cost your business as well, all this internal work, and just a better understanding on where you're at with that.
And I mean, the nice thing about having a label like internal is that we can look at internal work, but then we can also really easily report on what wasn't internal work or what wasn't non-billable.
Yeah.
Maybe to say what was billable by just adding the job label filter that is not internal. So that will just exclude that one from everything. So yeah, cool. And your other question there is about, it's a bit different to how Classic was handling that. And yes, that's the case. There's no tick billable box. We've kind of gotten rid of that one. We left it in the Lender FileMaker. Should we press on?
Yes, sounds good. Okay, so expenses is a good one as well. So in here, when you create your expenses, and as I mentioned, you would add your cost rates and the sell rates with a markup. Obviously, we want to make some profit. We don't want to be in loss. No one does. So in here, you can actually create those reports and understand how much profit are you getting from those expenses, and much more as well. So you can even understand what expenses has been billed, what they haven't, what expenses are ready to be billed, and even what's been paid and what hasn't been as well.
I might amount paid and balance to pay. So these are other. I've added these here on the right-hand side. It looks like there was not much being paid on these yet. We'll only see that really on those purchase orders once they're sent, because we'll need to reconcile payments against them. But if you are interested in tracking payments against expenses as well, so the difference between an expense, I'll just explain quickly, and a purchase order if you're unsure. An expense is a lightweight version of a purchase order. It's mainly just to track a cost. So we'll see that when we have an expense here, it's asking us just to add a few things: the quantity, the cost rate, the sell rate, and a markup, maybe a quick description and some supplier details. Now, when I explain this is a lightweight version of a purchase order, I mean that because we can actually convert an expense into a purchase order. Normally, there'll be a button here that lets us do that. We've already sent this one to 0, so it won't at the moment. But a purchase order is just a heftier form. If we need to send that off to a supplier, that's what that's for. That the expense normally does the trick. And if you are interested in being able to track the payment, adding a label to this expense as maybe paid, even in the description field, you could say paid on 9th of the 1st this year, and we can then save that one and send the changes across to 0 there. So
Cool. Quotes and invoices. It's another good report for you to create and understand what are the quotes and what are the budgets for your jobs, and when have they been issued, and when has they been approved and stuff like that. So in here, let's just maybe create a filter in here. We can maybe see all the quotes.
There's a quote status maybe that have been approved.
Exactly.
Cool.
To see all of our approved quotes and all our live jobs in a way.
Yeah. And maybe by combining an approved quote status with a date range can give you a quick idea of how much income you might expect at a particular point in time. So if I, had these quotes, let's say maybe this quote was issued last month. I'm not sure, maybe something this month. Okay, still nothing. Maybe let's say in the last quarter of last year. So I'll say after the 1st of October, and I'll add another filter and create a bit of a bracket when we do this. And I'll say before today, that should work. Cool. So it looks like there was just one quote approved last year, but it was worth $63,000. So it's going to help us get this year off to a good start, I think, if we start to see some of that in the bank account, but we might need to get some more work happening. So the idea we're trying to convey here is that you can kind of use these different lists in different ways to show you, really interesting insights into the studio and based on the work that's already been done. Some really simple things like that, understanding that we can apply different filters and think a bit more laterally about how we do our reporting. Yeah,
exactly. Lisa here asking a question on how can we filter by the date that the quote was approved rather than issued?
No, you can't, I'm afraid, Lisa. It's a good question though.
It is a very good question.
Maybe, I know Aaron, our founder, who works on the product team, is sitting in on this call, so maybe he'll take a note of that one.
Thanks,
we'll
Lisa.
Pass it on as feedback, but thanks for the question.
Thank you. And invoicing is another one, a big one in my opinion. So that's where you can actually understand how much money is coming in your business, and you can forecast in a way to understand how much profit are you making, how much money, what are the invoices to be paid, what are the invoices have been paid, and what's the amount outstanding there. So it is an important one. So we all love money, so you want to be profitable, you want to have profitable jobs and all your invoices to be paid on time.
Exactly. So using things like those invoice statuses once they've been sent to kind of get them together, getting creative with those filters. And another question that I actually had from someone that I was on a call with this morning was about, say on a job, you have multiple invoices across different points in time. how can I see a list of all of those invoices together and be able to report on them in meaningful ways? And I mean, of course, if you're on the job itself, you'll see a quick summary of those invoices, but we can also do that here using the job number filter, for example. That was the example that this person was after. So I'm not sure that I have an example here of multiple invoices on one job, but by being able to add a job filter, maybe I'll just say 203, 2032. Maybe that job status is inactive.
Speaking of the job status and filtering your creating a report on all the active jobs, inactive jobs, and even archive jobs. You can do that from that job screen in here. So should we spend some time in here, maybe a bit more, understand so the guys can understand the importance of due dates and see where the job status can be filtered by?
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at job status, we understand that by default we'll be showing you those active jobs.
Yep.
So paused, in play, and completed. And it's probably good to just flag that those are all really related to the items that live on a job. So when we are working on something, it's important to kind of keep these items up to date. For example, in this case, I can see that this 2020 rebrand of the City of Sydney, we've been working on that concept development since November. It's due to wrap up by the end of January, but and having those dates in there is really important. It's going to help us organize the information a bit better in Streamtime. So I'd certainly try and get in the habit of adding those dates in where you can. But this design work, maybe we're actually waiting to get working on that until this concept development starts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in pause, and what that'll allow us to do is give us a bit more time before we kind of say go for the team. Now, if all items on the job are paused, then the job status will become paused. If an item is in play on the job, then the job will be considered active, it's in play. And when everything's ticked off and completed, it's completed. And we'll still pull through those completed jobs onto this list because maybe there's still an invoice that needs to be reconciled, and that's important to know. So it's not quite ready to send off to the land of the archive yet, but once it is, we can always just click on that options button at the end of a job. You'll see those traffic lights appear when you hover over a job, and we can choose to archive a job there. And if we do want to look at those archive jobs, we can easily look at that filter.
Yeah. And can you bring it back to the completed jobs instead of archive?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can always restore a job. We can always click in, look at the job, and we can always restore it, bringing it back to the fore there if we ever want to look at something, or something becomes active again, or maybe that was an accident in the first place.
Great. I think we've covered what we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we should mention? Maybe creating templates would be.
One thing I think would be good to mention, given we're talking about capturing data and the best way to do this, might be just to talk a bit about capturing time and explaining how the to-do list is really doing this, of what's happening there, and why teams are actually finding the to-do list a great way to capture time. And so most of you are probably familiar with how this screen works and what's going on. But what we can kind of see here is our week. Obviously, when we're coming in, we might be planning our week ahead of time, and that's kind of what we want to encourage teams to do when they use Streamtime. So I can easily set up a few tasks for my week. I've just been able to duplicate those. I've held down the Alt button so I can create a few different copies of that, because I'm going to be working on that today, Thursday and Friday. Maybe I had Monday, Tuesday off this week, so I wasn't in. So I can set up a few things that I'm planning to do. And what I'm doing now is actually creating, a schedule for myself to kind of stick to. And I want to spend 4 hours on this. Maybe I ended up spending 5 hours, and that's fine. By really easily being able to just drag that task down to done, it's making me a a lot more accountable for my time. First of all, it's really visible that I've planned my time, and my team will be able to see this too in the schedule. And it's also really easy for me to then track the time and know when I haven't tracked time. One thing we hear a lot is team members, chasing up other team members for not having done their timesheets in the last 3, maybe even 4 weeks sometimes. And by that point, that person isn't able to actually remember how much time they spent on a particular task on a particular day. So by trying to keep this in the present as much as possible, let's say, even, if tomorrow rolls around and I still have an active task for yesterday or a task that was planned but not necessarily tracked, it's always really easy for me to then go and track that. And it's really obvious when I haven't. So what we found is that teams are getting better at actually tracking their time, which is really awesome, because what that then is doing is giving you some really important data about your business. It's first of all telling you where time is going, but also how much did that hour cost and how much did we sell that hour for, which then is pushing into all of your profitability reporting. So coming all the way back to looking at setting up cost rates, which we did at the start, knowing that that's intrinsically linked to your team's timesheets, and that there's a lot of value that is harnessed in that is really important.
Yeah, exactly. Paddy's right. And Paul has got some questions in here. So just on the duplicating those items that you showed, duplicating the tasks, on your to-do screen, Paul is asking whether this duplication affect the original time of the job plan. So anything you do on your to-do screen doesn't affect the plan itself, because you could see when you hover over, you see how much time you plan for this day. So for this task, 4 hours, and we've got remaining of 138. I'm a bit blind. Oh my gosh, 138 hours and 30 minutes. So it doesn't affect your plan at all.
Yeah. So what we're doing there is just creating tasks to kind of hack away at that planned time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's your screen. You make that judgment, essential judgment for yourself, and see, understand when do you have time to work on those things.
Yeah,
and you plan your week ahead.
Totally. One thing you'll notice is that on the task on the right-hand side, this concept development, I can see that there are 138 hours and 30 minutes planned. And when I do track time, I've created that task and I track that 4 hours, we'll see that remaining time is now dropped by 4 hours to 134 hours and 30 minutes.
Exactly.
So that remaining figure there is going to be updated live for you.
Yeah, and since there are 4 people working on this job, as you can see, there's a little sign with 4 little people in here. So it will be updated once time has been tracked by someone else.
Exactly.
Cool. And there's one more question, Paula, on the T's and C's for the purchase orders. It's not really the topic for us, but we can quickly jump in and show Paula.
Sure.
Should we?
Yeah.
Where do we update T's and C's for purchase orders?
Cool. So I don't actually think we have T and C's for a purchase order. I wonder why you would have terms and conditions for a purchase order. A purchase order is normally something that we would ask from our client. So we would probably be abiding by their T and C's upon quote or perhaps payment. So we don't have a space in Streamtime for those. It's more on quotes and invoices that we'll want to establish our terms and conditions. Paula sends POs to suppliers, but maybe we can have a conversation about that after. What those T and C's are. That may be a good place to put some information for your supplier, if you do want to include that on a purchase order, is just as a separate line item. So maybe let's say, we need this printing done. Maybe this is going to cost us $500, let's say. You can always add another line item and just use that as text or information. So let's say info for supplier. And then you can just use this description text box here as a free text field, really.
Exactly.
Any info for supplier can live here. Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks, buddy. Is there anything else, guys? And any more questions?
I think we've hit our 30-minute mark. So if there are no other questions, burning questions on people's tongues, then maybe we can park it there for the week.
Sure. If you have any more questions, any further ones that you forgot to ask today, you can always talk to us online by using that help button in Streamtime. So we would always happy to help you. And if you need to even find some articles as well, there are heaps of information here for you. So you can search your answers just here.
Exactly. Awesome.
And thank you, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.